This is your Chargers linebacker, Daiyan, Henley, and you're tuning in with Chargers Unleashed.
Welcome to another edition of Chargers Unleashed. Jake Hefner and Daiyan Wolkenstein here with you from the LAFB Network. If this is your first time tuning into the show, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Daiyan Wolkenstein, can I just say it feels good to be home. Had a very nice vacation in Hawaii with a significant other. I know as it relates to time scheduling, our time getting the shows that we needed to after a very dramatic win on Sunday Night Football against the Cincinnati Bengals. Emotions were flying high after Sunday's game. I know you took the reins. You did an instant reaction show. We were able to talk to Chris Rim earlier this week, which sets up the premise for today's show, because today's going to be a little bit of a bridge. I know that we're on Friday, but we had so many voicemails call into the Chargers Unleashed hotline that we did not want to have those go to waste. We wanted to get those on our show. We wanted to go over those. So today is going to be a little bit of a bridge episode, if you will, going back, recapping some of the memories of the last few days as it relates to the Los Angeles Chargers, again, talking about that victory on Sunday Night Football, while also still talking a little bit about the upcoming Monday night Harbaugh matchup between the Baltimore Ravens and the Los Angeles Chargers. And we'll go into more context as it relates to the Monday night matchup later on this week. Dan and I are probably planning a live show for that, so keep an eye out because we'll have plenty to discuss as it relates to that matchup. But Dan Wolkenstein, context out of the way, I will shut up. How are you feeling?
The Chargers are 7-3. That wasn't a stutter. Your Los Angeles Chargers are 7-3 after beating the Cincinnati Bengals on primetime in a heart-wrenching, everyone was on the edge of their seat, heart palpitations. You want to talk about all of the medications required in order to get through that game, whether it was libations, medicine, whatever your medicine is. They got through it. On to the other side with a W. And Chargers Unleashed hotline was lit after this. I think we have 7 or 8 voicemails. And there are so many ways to start, I think, this recap-ish. But can we just take a second as Chargers fans and folks covering this team? Jake, you and I have been doing this for 5 years now. I don't remember if there has ever been a moment for a Chargers home game where you heard the home crowd as amped and as a part of that game as you heard in that primetime game against the Bengals. And you heard so many different players and coaches and fans who were at the game. That was the most electric atmosphere. So I give kudos and shout outs to all the Chargers fans. We collectively have been through hell and back. And for the Chargers to win that game, to bring those fans that win, that winning feeling, leaving that stadium, franchise altering, season changing, legacy defining, all the accolades you want. I'm feeling great, Jake. This is going to be an amazing episode. I haven't looked forward to one this much in a long time.
You sound like you put Darth Dan to bed for this episode.
Darth Dan was out in the second half.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I haven't heard you this positive even after a victory, arguably all season.
The Chargers are 7-3 right now.
Good for Dan Wolkenstein.
Sure, there are things that they can improve upon. And we'll get into some of the mishaps and some of the mistakes that we saw made, both player and coaching. But at 7-3, am I satisfied? No. Is this Chargers team a Super Bowl championship caliber team right now?
Can't say that yet.
I don't know. Give me a couple weeks, and I'll get back to you on that. But Jake, before we get to this past week and all the excitement, let's pay the bills. Let's talk about our friends over at BetOnline.
Want to remind everybody that BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline is every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. You think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of up to $200K. When the game is over, head on over to our online casino and get on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our 150 slot games. Head on over to the website today. That's betonline.ag. BetOnline. The game starts here.
Well, Jake, also, when the game starts on Monday Night Football, we've got a giveaway to announce. So, folks who have not seen it already, go check out the pinned tweet on our X profile or on Instagram or anywhere else you find our profile. We have a Tuli Tuipulotu signed custom jersey that we are announcing a giveaway to one lucky fan. All you got to do is, I think it's like, follow, and send a screenshot of your subscription to Chargers Unleashed. Go check it out. Make sure you enter for your chance to win a signed Tuli Tuipulotu jersey, courtesy of Rock Solid Sports Memorabilia. Jake, let's get into this fun one because, damn, this Chargers team is 7-3. But let's get back into the mindset, Jake. Chargers rolling in the first half. Chargers driving. Slow start a little bit. I think the first drive was a punt. Let's all take ourselves back to what it sounded like at the beginning of that Justin Herbert for MVP style performance Sunday night primetime.
Herbert throws it down. Touchdown. Johnston. Woo! Watch Justin Herbert just as he releases this ball. You got to throw all the way across the field. Both feet off the ground, beautiful stroke out there, and you can tell he is just feeling it out here tonight. Simply sensational quarterback play. You won't see better than that anywhere in the NFL.
You know, there's, admittedly, and I'm not trying to throw shade here, but I don't watch Sunday Night Football to listen to Chris Collinsworth talk.
I know.
Okay. However, it was extremely gratifying in prime time to hear Chris Collinsworth talk about the mode that Justin Herbert was on Sunday Night Football. Mm-hmm. Because outside of that commentary that you just heard, he was talking about when Justin Herbert was breaking out for his long runs, that the anticipation, seeing the field, what Justin Herbert was doing in terms of making those quick, easy decisions to say, hey, I can go get this. There's the opening. I don't need to worry about throwing the football right now. It felt like a step-up game for Justin Herbert. It felt like a level-up moment for him. All things considered, even with the way that the second half ended up going and ultimately how the game ended up finishing. But this first half just showcased to you that when Justin Herbert, as Jim Harbaugh has been calling him, goes, beast mode, this is what he's capable of. And this is him doing this without the Keenan Allens or the Mike Williams of the world. This is him making a blocking tight end a certifiable weapon in the passing game. This is him connecting with a second-year player that a lot of us, even Dan and I included, had a number of different questions coming into this season as it relates to said player in Quentin Johnston. This is finding the connection between himself and Ladd McConkey and how instantaneous that has been since training camp and how beautifully that has grown during this season. You love to see this. And Jim Harbaugh has changed the culture in a way that we will never truly be able to understand, but all we can do is just sit back and admire what has taken place.
We can go into this and just gush over Justin Herbert first half and end of game performance till the cows come home. That was the best you've seen Justin Herbert, and that says something because Justin Herbert has been damn good his entire career. This is the healthiest you've seen Justin Herbert when we have not seen this Justin Herbert before due to A, health, B, coaching, or C, circumstance. Justin Herbert is going God mode like you've seen other quarterbacks, the elite of the elite, do. We were just talking about this, Jake, seeing the likes of Patrick Mahomes literally take over games. Seeing the likes of Josh Allen, who just did this against Patrick Mahomes, take over games. That is what Justin Herbert has now done. Is he is transforming the way he plays and the impact that he brings to this team. I mean, I think it was like 80-something plus % of the total yards this Chargers team had on offense came directly from Justin Herbert through the air or his legs. And we can go over so many different dimes that he threw. The Quentin Johnston one on the run, running forward, ridiculous. The tight end throw that he threw to Will Dissly.
Drops it into triple coverage. Gorgeous.
Insane. The one on the corner, I think it was to Quentin over the underneath help. Ridiculous. Then you want to talk about the Lad McConkey ones at the end of the game. I mean, there were so many dimes that no other quarterback, or maybe one or two, maybe, can do in this world. And you wonder why Jim Harbaugh chose the Los Angeles Chargers. This guy wants a Super Bowl ring. He's going to be going up against his brother, who beat him in the Super Bowl before. And this is his best chance to do it. And can Justin Herbert become the MVP? Got a long way to go. But the way he's been playing since he came back from the injury, if we started the line then, he's the MVP. Unfortunately, the season started week 1, not week 7. First half, Jake, was absolutely insanity. Chargers offense, insane. Chargers defense, going great. You saw Cam Hart balling out. You saw Tyler Tart, Tuli Tuipulotu. No Khalil Mack, and this Chargers defense is going crazy. How many pressures you saw from this Chargers defense without Khalil Mack is insanity. Joey Bosa and Tuli both had 8 pressures by themselves each. Second half got a little hairy. Some of that due to injury. Some of that because, if we're being honest, Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase are just that damn good. Give credit where credit is due. You thought you were going to stop that trio? I didn't. We both had our predictions, had them in the high 20s because of that very reason. So it was about as anxiety-inducing as I expected.
Yep.
And thankfully, they escaped with a victory. And I think what's probably the biggest takeaway for the fan perspective and for probably the team, I'll let you take this, Jake. That familiar verb that they have heard for, honestly, at least a decade was crawling into our heads.
Mm-hmm.
And they slammed the door. They didn't flinch. And chargering, I can't think of another time that was negated more than this one through adversity.
No, I can't. Maybe the closest one that comes to mind in terms of that type of situation when things get close. God, maybe you go back to the Darren Sproles Indianapolis Colts playoff game.
Yeah.
Where you shut the door at that point, given what the all-purpose yards that Darren Sproles had in that particular game.
Which that J.K. Dobbins run kind of reminded me of that.
That was the kill shot, essentially. There were just so many things that took place in this game. And as you mentioned it, Dan, that second half, even I'm watching the first half, and my score prediction for it was 35-27.
You were close.
Almost had it. And there were so many things that changed the dynamic of it because, and even Greg Roman talked about, going with what was working. And truth be told, I'm all for that. There's been so many times through different coaching regimes that this team will do something that works, and then the next half you'll see it, and they go away from what was working. And that was frustrating. So I love the fact that Greg Roman thought with that mentality. But the fact is, in terms of the overall execution, the offense just could not get anything going for a majority of that second half. It was 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. And you kept having to bring your defense back on the field. And through a number of situations, whether it be penalties that extended drives or critical fourth down conversions by the Bengals, 2 of their touchdowns came on fourth downs in this game. Those ended up being those type of moments that shifted the momentum back in their favor. And as Dan said, credit to where credit's due, because they were able to find their way back into it. Injuries included, because Cam Hart going out with a concussion, I think vastly changed the coverage downfield on Jamar Chase or T. Higgins, because you both saw them get wide open on a number of occasions. Basically, all 3 of the Bengals skilled players were able to go off. Chase Brown was able to go off both in the running game and the receiving game. T. Higgins ended up being an animal for them. Jamar Chase doing Jamar Chase things. And Joe Burrow in the second half was able to get things going. He was able to evade pressure. Chargers were not able to get to him the way that they were getting to him in the first half. And you find yourself in that familiar situation to where we all started thinking, oh my God, this is the Jacksonville game part 2. And we don't ever want to relive that situation ever again. Dan, when we had Chris Rim on the show earlier this week, he said he was even typing it up and basically saving it away until the clock struck 000, that was the story that was going to be ran. And thankfully for him,
you get, I mean, how many times has he written, metaphorically, we written, heard, seen, lived that nightmare of a story?
It just goes back to the old cliche that until the clock hits 000, that nothing is ever over until it's over. But the Chargers have always found themselves on the worst side of that conversation. And I'm sure Chris never felt better to hit the backspace button in his entire career than that moment.
And to your point, literally up until the last play, he couldn't hit the backspace button.
No. It wasn't even after the J.K. Dobbins situation. We literally had to wait for that next drive.
And then you had to wait till the last play, and the blessing that is Derwin James at the end of that game to knock down that Hail Mary that was going to be a touchdown to T. Higgins. And that would have been an absolute heart ripper.
Yeah. Dan, let's get into some of the voicemails, because how many do we have that ended up calling in after the game was over?
I believe we have 7 or 8, but who's counting? Let's get into it.
Yeah, who's counting? Let's go.
First voicemail.
Dan, Jake, my boys, I love you.
I know who this is.
Here. Last year, we were a bad football team when the Ravens came to SoFi, and it took a late touchdown for them to pull off the win. My bold prediction for Monday, we are going to beat their ass bad. I got the Bolts winning 34-14, and Herbert and McConkey will connect for 2 touchdowns, baby. Let's fucking go.
Beep. I love you, Athir.
Look, Athir is definitely, if you're not familiar with Athir from any of our live shows or have heard him talk on this show or with any other podcast, you'll know that Athir is the consummate cheerleader for this team, especially since Jim Harbaugh has been the head coach. I'll agree with 90% of what Athir was talking about. I know he's basically taken up the optimistic mantle that was Dan Wolkenstein at some point. To say that the Chargers are going to hold the Baltimore Ravens to 14 points, that is a little out there, my man, especially considering the fact that they average 30 points per game.
And they just lost.
And they just lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers without the Pittsburgh Steelers even scoring a touchdown to win that game. So that is a bold statement. I know that he is all up in his feels, and rightfully so, as it relates to the Chargers being 7-3 and coming off a victory like that. I'll agree on the Ladd McConkey situation. I would also throw in Quentin Johnston to that, because outside of Kyle Hamilton for the Baltimore Ravens, much like the Bengals situation was, Baltimore Ravens are susceptible in the secondary. And this will probably end up being another Justin Herbert special, where they're going to have to rely on his mobility, his arm, and not so much on the run game anymore for them to pull this one out. It's going to be an exciting Monday Night Football game. But damn, I mean, a lot of us would like to hope that prediction's right. But I won't hold my breath on that one.
We'll get to that. Let's do another one, Jake. Again, Chargers Unleashed hotline. You can call in with your 30-second voicemail. Remember, hear that 30-second voicemail. Some of these voicemails might go a little long, so we have to cut them off. 323-374-5651. Let's get to another one, Jake.
We did it. We effing did it. Oh, nail biter, close one. JK saved me from jumping off the interstate. Chargers win. That's all I care about. Close wins and blowout. A close wins count for the same amount as a regular one. That's all we need to care about.
Shout out to the 405. That is clean.
Oh my God. First of all, let me we do not condone anybody doing anything to themselves after any type of Chargers loss. So please do not do that.
No, it's not that serious.
I'm very thankful that regardless of what was going to happen, that no harm ended up coming to you.
So happy he is safe.
Oh my Lord.
That's how y'all felt.
Dan, the J.K. Dobbins play, you already knew at that point in time that they were in field goal range. And you thought to yourself, like, okay, maybe they'll just run it a little bit to knock this clock, get it all the way down to 1 second, take that last time out, and they'll kick a last-second field goal. And J.K. Dobbins said, F that. Greg Roman has echoed the same type of comments in terms of him going for it. It was a beautiful, beautiful run. And the better part of it is when you hear Chris Collinsworth on commentary saying to himself to go down. And it's just like, no, F you. I'm going for the score. I don't care. I don't need to take a knee and have this be a dramatic kick. As much as we would have loved to have not had to have wait for that last second Hail Mary pass to be incomplete. That's just the type of mentality that JK has been instilled with, this team has been instilled with, to say, go out there and win the game. We're going to win the game like this.
I don't blame
Go out there and make a
times,
play.
How many times have you seen this Chargers team go out there with a field goal opportunity and somehow, by the grace of God, something goes wrong?
Jacksonville.
Hell, sure. Hell, we saw Phillip Rivers jack up a kneel down that cost a victory. You don't think a missed field goal could happen?
I almost put that one fully out of my brain. Thanks for resurrecting that.
You saw Marlon McCree. I mean, we can go on and on about the crazy ways that they have snatched victory from the jaws of defeat.
Yeah.
But Jake, real quick, how many chills did we Chargers fans go through on that game-winning drive? You mentioned the J.K. Dobbins run. Let's listen and go through that game-winning drive that was the Herbert, McConkey, and J.K. Dobbins show.
45 seconds on the clock.
You remember when Mike Hilton jumped this out route before, right? Made a great play. We talked about it.
That's coaching, by the way.
God, the beautiful thing about that play, Dan, is that was the same route that Ladd McConkey made just a few minutes earlier that Herbert missed him when he was wide open.
Yep.
And what made it better, I think, was for the fact that Hilton even knew where the ball was going at that point in time, because now he was fully covered. He was not going to allow him to get wide open. And for Ladd to climb the ladder, that catch was so dramatic in that pivotal point in time with 45 seconds left on the clock. That got everything going. And they were like, man, hell yeah, that was a chunk play that you needed to get at least in field goal range. Continue.
Yep. You remember when Mike Hilton jumped this out route before, right? Made a great play. We talked about it. Out and back up to take advantage of the aggressiveness of Hilton, and they hit a huge play down the boundary. Let him get inside because you want to get him back out to the corner with that too deep. and your strong arm quarterback does it again. It has been a little while, but they may have just found their next go-to smiling guy.
Front champagne, Dobbins runs left, Dobbins takes off, Dobbins inside the 10, Dobbins to the end zone, in for the touchdown, and the Chargers take the lead.
Do you hear the fans?
I'm so glad you brought that up. I haven't. Remember, Jim Harbaugh asked for Chargers fans to come to SoFi because it was going to be exciting. To have it pay off that way, you haven't had a moment, Dan, you mentioned this at the beginning of the show, you haven't had a moment in SoFi like that with that type of a home crowd that shows up. Have you had moments in dramatic games in SoFi? Sure. But there's a reason why everybody was talking about through previous coaching regimes that every single home game felt like you were still playing an away game.
Yep.
It would be filled with the opposing team's fan base. And sure, there were Bengals fans definitely in SoFi on Sunday night. But to have the fan base, you go out on social media and you see some of these videos that people had taken from it and just emotionally crying to have that type of a moment to say, yes, we're not going to have another repeat of the Jacksonville situation. To close it out like that in that moment with that fan base watching, it was beautiful. Dan, I can't remember a situation like that. I know I had mentioned the Darren Sproles Indy playoff game back at the Q. You go back to when LT broke the rushing record at the Q, what that was like.
That's a good one.
I mean, you haven't had
Gates
that
was
type
one.
of,
Antonio Gates was a good one.
Gates
too.
was another one. You just haven't had that type of a moment in SoFi up until Sunday. And it was a beautiful thing. I know we're not even talking about a record-breaking milestone or a playoff win. We're talking about a game in the middle of the season on prime time. It didn't matter. That just seemed like a moment that the fan base had been waiting for it to have in that stadium. And you just hope that this was the first of many. So I know that neither you or I was at that game, but for everybody who came to attend, for everybody who's going to attend on Monday Night Football,
I will.
I wish I could have been there.
Me too.
To share that moment with everybody, because that was a beautiful, beautiful sight.
I'm jumping up and down with my daughter and my wife. And my daughter's screaming, "Go Chargers!" My wife's screaming, "What the heck just happened?" We're going ballistic. I got the high-pitched voice going, full bore. I can't remember that much joy from a Chargers game. I mean, it felt pretty good, that Miami game, whatever it was, 2 years ago. But given the backdrop of this, and given the history of Chargering, and given who they're going up against with Joe Burrow, and given the new coaching regime, and given this defense, and given SoFi, and given prime time, and given 6-3 turning to 7-3, and given an upcoming matchup versus the Ravens, and that culture shift, and the way that they went and took it at the end. You want to talk about the lead they gave up, or however you want to talk about it, that is a damn good offense they went up against, and they held them. If you want to talk about final score, they did pretty good. And when it got tight, that defense stopped them multiple times and gave the Chargers offense multiple times. Did they come through the first time at the end of the game? No. Second, third, fourth, fifth? No. But they did it at the end when their best was needed. Given all of that context, like, this is no hyperbole. This is arguably, folks in the chat, you tell me, Jake, you tell me, I can't think of a bigger moment for this Chargers franchise since A, coming to LA, and B, in retrospect, you can say since drafting Justin Herbert. But at the moment, I think this is the biggest moment since coming to LA.
I don't disagree. And Justin Herbert's had plenty of previously great primetime matchups.
Yep.
There was just something a little bit different with this one. And I think it was for the case that it became such a dramatic game with the Chargers going out to a big lead. And then, the Bengals come roaring back and tying the game. And in those last 2.5 minutes that, look, hey, in certain situations like this, you get lucky. And if you would have told me that the Chargers were going to have 2 possessions in the final 3 minutes of the game, and so same for the Bengals, and the Bengals were going to miss 2 field goals that would give the Chargers back a possession to ultimately take the lead in the game, I would have said, you're nuts. And sometimes you need a little bit of luck when it comes to football. We've seen it with the Chiefs. We've seen it with the Patriots for 20 years. We've seen it
go against this Chargers team for years.
That's the case, is that the ball never seems to bounce that way for the Chargers that often.
Remember the Cardinals game?
Oh, yes. So the buildup, as you said, Dan, and the dramatics in which the game ultimately ended up being and the way that it finished, as you said, the best was needed from the defense. And they ultimately tightened the screws, forced some of those third down incompletions that led to the missed field goals and stopped them where they needed to stop them. And you got the momentum back. As Jim Harbaugh said, even though we lost the momentum, doesn't mean that they had it. They got it back, and they were able to close the game out.
Yeah, and again, like you want to throw shade at the defense for quote unquote giving up that lead. I mean, it counts obviously, but 2 of those 3 touchdowns they scored were on 4th down. Like the Chargers defense was right there, and there was one where just T. Higgins does T. Higgins things, splits double team on 4th down. And then the one that I kind of had a little bit of a problem with was the defensive play call where they sent everyone and Cam Hart's on an island with Jamar Chase and gives him inside.
That was a decision.
That one hurt. But again, that was after they had a fantastic stop on 3rd down. So they are hanging tough. They are hanging tough. And I think it's important, you want to sit here and talk about the defense. And, as amazing as Justin Herbert and his offense was in the first half, and before that last drive, like there were moments where this Chargers team was doing pretty good in the second half. Like that long field goal, that field goal drive that they had got the 3 points. Then there's that one play where they were going down the field to score, and then that fluke fumble by Justin Herbert. But that was a 3-minute drive going 50 yards. They were up 7 then. It would have been a two possession game. They were already in field goal range. But this is what the defense was given to work with when that 21-point swing came back. Chargers offense, 3 plays, 3 yards, 59 seconds, gives the ball back. Next one, 7 plays, 24 yards in under 3 minutes, field goal. Next series, touchdown by Bengals. Next series, 3 plays, negative 12 yards, just 1 minute, punt. Next series, 4 plays, 50 yards, touchdown by the Bengals. Next series of the Chargers is that fumble, but again, just 3 minutes went by in the game. Next series, 71-yard touchdown drive by the Bengals, 4th down touchdown. Next series, 4 plays, 17 yards, just 30 seconds. Then the Bengals missed a field goal. Then the Chargers went 3 plays, minus 4 yards, punted. Bengals missed another one. Then 22-second drive for the Chargers in 3 plays, punt. Then the Bengals, 4 plays, 14 yards, defense, bows up, punt. Then Chargers, 4 plays, 84 yards, ball game. The defense was kind of left out to dry. Not only did the offense not score, but they didn't take any time off the clock. And you're expecting your defense, who's probably gassed. I know they have those 4th quarter finishes in training camp and practice. I get all that. But you can't go away from the running game like that as much as you did. And you can't expect a Chargers defense to hold a Joe Burrow and company offense for that long. The Chargers defense would probably have given up 14 less points if the offense had 1 sustained drive in that second half.
It was a lot like the Arizona game, Dan, as you mentioned, because on certain conversions of those drives that ultimately ended up being punts, you go back to the pass that Herbert had to Quentin Johnston that he let him just a little bit too far over his hands. There was that pass to Joshua Palmer that looked like a great catch, and then it wasn't, and it was incomplete. And then you go to the lad McConkey on the sidelines where he's wide open and just he overthrows him. Outside of the fumble and everything else that follows, that these were all aspects that led to the Bengals being able to mount a comeback the way they did. And I don't care what defense you are, whether you're the Chargers, the Chiefs, anybody. When those type of situations happen with your offense, it's hard to sustain that as a defense, to stay on the field as long as they had to, given what the offense was not producing. And thankfully, you got that Herbert magic and that first quarter Herbert back in those final 45 seconds to put you in the position that they did.
I mean, Jake, like I know I just went through all the numbers, but real quick, those drives for the Chargers, they had a 3-play drive for 59 seconds. They had a 3-play drive for a minute, a 4-play drive for 35 seconds, a 3-play drive for 2 minutes, a 3-play drive for 22 seconds, and then the 4-play drive for 84 yards and a touchdown with 27 seconds. That's like a collective 4 minutes of like 6 drives. And the defense is right back out there.
Yeah, wasn't good.
So you want to, I don't put that on the defense. I don't. Jake, voicemail. Let's get to another one of these. Chargers Unleashed hotline. Again, you can call in anytime. The number, you know the drill. The number is 323-902-7586. Let's listen to the next voicemail on Chargers Unleashed hotline.
Hey, Chargers Unleashed. This is Gerald from Connecticut.
Oh, Jake, I have a feeling Gerald from Connecticut's going to go on for a bit. Gerald, if you're listening, 30 seconds. We'll give this one a bit to breathe. And then we're going to have to cut you off.
G-Money. What's going on, guys? I got to tell you, what a win. I mean, that was some game. We pulled it out in the end, 34-27 over the Bengals. I thought the first half we came out with a purpose. We wanted to make a statement and dominated that first half, and then had that big lead, 27-6. We're up 24-6 at the half, 27-6. And then the Bengals came back, and Joe Burrow was fantastic, and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and those guys were just fantastic, and they came back, and it was a tie game in the fourth quarter, and then in the end, who would have the ball last and see what we do. I mean, the 2 missed field goals by this.
All right, we'll cut you off, Gerald. Again, thank you so much for calling in. Let's try to keep it to 3 seconds because we got literally 5 more of these to go through. But I think you could hear the trepidation and the exhaustion from Gerald in Connecticut, G-Money. And I feel you. I couldn't sleep for hours because I was trying to process what was going on after that win.
I mean, Dan, let's be real about this. I mean, like I told you, you need strokes of luck to ultimately have a moment for yourself that puts you in a position to go out and win a game. You're 2 missed field goals away from having a different conversation. You're 45 seconds away, 2 passes and a run away, if they're not executed properly, from us having a different conversation. And I go back and I think about this, and to think about what might have been. And ultimately what I've come back around to, because even Joey Bosa had alluded to this after the game, having that 24-6 lead, and you would love to just keep running up the score. And we've seen Detroit do stuff like this all season long and, go out and get a blowout win. In the end, Dan, to have a moment like this where you win a tough game, to battle the elements, to lose the momentum, to have that team come back and tie the game late in the fourth quarter against you and still find a way to win. You go back and you look at the rest of the Chargers games that have taken place this year. The games that they have been able to have a comfortable win, they've been able to close out late in the game. You go back to the first 2 games against the Raiders, against Carolina. Again, this was a different offense those first 2 weeks. Then you go to the Denver game. They come back a little bit, but you're still able to tighten it up and win. You go back to the Saints game. Much different story. The defense just had themselves a day, was able to clamp it down, and did the type of things that we're used to this defense doing. And this was the real big test heading into this. And this is why I had originally called the score what it was, 35-27, because I believed that this was going to be the first time that Jesse Minter's defense was going to give up more than 20 points. And ultimately it did. But to have them win in that type of fashion, to battle the elements, I think it's exactly what they needed. And not to say it to try to sugarcoat the dramatics of the win or to say that this team is not focused, but these are the type of games that you're going to have come playoffs. You're going to have to battle these type of elements when it comes to playoff time, because we know the type of teams that you're going to face come January.
Yep.
To go through a trial by fire like this, you're going to remember that later on in the season. And that should give this team even more confidence going out there and being able to win.
You'll remember that far more than a blowout win. Far more. And you get so much more out of this than you do a blowout win. They all count the same in the win-loss column, sure. But the takeaways are so much more. The intangibles are so much more in this one. And, you want to sit here and say they got lucky with the field goals and all that kind of stuff. First off, shout out to Tarheeb still. Shout out to Daiyan Henley. There are some massive plays and stops that kept those drives from being closer. And so those field goals, granted, they were makeable. Sure. They were long. And also, let's remember, we want to bitch about this Chargers team winning lucky games. Need I remind you what the Chiefs have done this year? How many games has this Chiefs team won this year alone that they should not have won? Quote unquote. Should not have won. Do you think that they're over there saying, probably shouldn't have won that game? They're pissed off. Like, come on.
The win column has no discrimination on how you get there.
No.
It's simply just get it and move on.
You saw that win that they had against the Ravens. They were a toenail away from losing that game. You saw the win they had against the Bengals. The Bengals game, the Broncos game, the Falcons game. Hell, Chargers game.
The Bucs game.
Chargers probably should have won. The Bucs game. Just this past week, the Broncos game. Every one of them are tight. Every one of them they could have, some could argue should have lost. Winning teams find a way to win. For the most part. And the fact that this Chargers team has found a way to win 7 of their 10 games without a fully healthy Joey Bosa for many of the games, without a Khalil Mack, without Asante Samuel Jr., without so many other players. They busted up Justin Herbert for the first 6 weeks of this game. Offensive lines in shambles. No DJ Shark. Gus Edwards on IR. Haven't even seen Hayden Hurst. You're throwing to Will Dissly. 2 fifth-round corners. First-year head coach back in the league. New scheme, offense and defense. And you're winning 7 of 10? Like, Darth Dan, Jake Vader, like they can show up when they're losing, sure. But given what has transpired, how could you not be optimistic about this season and next season? And the season after that, this is probably the worst you're going to see. If you look at how history has presented itself with Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh and company, look at Jim Harbaugh's track record. So this is how football games are won. You alluded to it. Go look at that Pittsburgh game last night. That game was ugly. And Pittsburgh almost squeaked out of that one. And I thought they were going to. As soon as they got that fumble recovery, I was like, oh, there goes Pittsburgh again, because Tomlin's a damn good coach and that team doesn't know how to lose. And then somehow you got the crab leg himself just going crazy. So Chargers defense hang tough when it matters the most. Chargers offense showed up when it mattered the most. And ice in his veins, Justin Herbert and that boy lad. Can you take a second?
Just a lad that loves football.
I know Chargers fans were in their feelings, and some still talk about the Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnston thing last year.
Who are those people?
But honestly, and I genuinely ask this question: who would you rather have right now, Zay Flowers or Ladd McConkey?
First of all, honestly, I think look.
There's not a wrong answer there, but the fact that that's even a question.
I think you just have to measure it from the standpoint of this previous draft, Dan, because Zay Flowers, Ladd McConkey, two completely different players in two completely different wide receiver classes. Because when you look at Zay Flowers,
classes, yes,
because Zay Flowers wide receiver class, along with Quentin Johnston, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, I think arguably can't be compared to what the rookie class of this year is doing as a whole. And then for all of the context, even you, even me, thinking that number 5 needed to be a wide receiver who was going to be at that point in the draft. And this team still stuck to its guns, got the best tackle of the draft, and you were still able to turn the 37th overall pick into Ladd McConkey, who is now among some of the leaders in certain categories for rookie receivers.
Who's the better offensive rookie of the year than Joe Alt, honestly? Someone else is going to get it because he's a lineman. Linemen don't get it.
Well, I mean, you look at the quarterbacks, honestly, between Jake Daniels, Bo Nix is even making a case for that currently as it stands right now. Yeah. But you can't knock the
quarterbacks.
Right. You can't knock the Joe Alt pick any longer. And I think it's just because of what that turned into, Dan. I think it shows us that Joe Alt was the right pick all along because of what followed for the tackles after the fact. And there were 8 offensive linemen. Yes, I remember,
Jake, how you were and how many fans were as soon as that number 5 pick was. And then,
but when you look at it in retrospect, 8 offensive linemen were taken in that first round alone. And then to grab Ladd McConkey where you did and to see the results that have followed since then, to have your rookie wide receiver start putting up the same type of numbers that haven't been put up since Keenan Allen was a rookie, that's saying something. That's doing something. And again, all of this coming on the heels of changing a new coach, changing a new GM. This is where I keep falling back to Joe Ortiz and the relationship that he and Jim Harbaugh have had. There has never been, and I don't even care if you want to go all the way back to the days of, AJ Smith or Bobby Beathard. Yes, they had their great moments, but even still, we know, based on the fallout of what happened, that the relationship between GM and head coach was never this good as it is with Joe Ortiz and Jim Harbaugh. And we've only been talking about it for one season. And we've never seen anything as far as the relationship goes. So when you have that type of chemistry between your front office and your coaching staff, that's how winning teams built. That's how the Patriots did it for so long. That's how the Chiefs are still able to churn it out 10 years going. This is how it's done, and this is what the Chargers have been waiting for. So as this slide shows, there is more than just a winning formula, than just a simple win and loss record. It is something that the Chargers have needed for going on at this point 20 years. And it starts from the front office down. And that's where everything needed to be ripped up down to the studs and built back up from the ashes.
I mean, there's so many angles to this winning formula, and we'll get to these voicemails because we got a few more here. I can't help but appreciate over and over how unapologetically himself and how much they believe in their formula for winning. And every other team wants to zig, they're going to zag come hell or high water. They do not care. He does not care. And Jim Harbaugh, he does not care.
What was it that Trevor Sikkema said to us, Dan, when we had him on for our draft show? His response when we asked him what effect did we feel that Jim Harbaugh was going to have on this team? And Trevor's answer was simple, and I think it still rings true to this very moment. He said, it doesn't matter what Jim Harbaugh is going to do. All you know is he's going to figure out a way to win. Whatever he's going to do is going to generate a winning football team because he's done it every single place that he's been. And that's the long and the short of it. And that's the truth. And some of us, because of us watching this team for so long and being frustrated, whether it relates to regular season results or coaching situations or whoever we feel should have been a better draft pick at the time, we've got scar tissue from that. So it was hard to believe until we actually saw the results of what came from it. We're now 10 games into this Chargers season. I think the results speak for themselves.
Yeah, by the way, do you see folks who were watching? I'm pretty sure Jim Harbaugh is wearing a Casio watch.
Well, that's an eyeball, Dan. I mean, I know my Vision 8 2020, but that's an observation. Okay.
It is analog. It is not digital. I can tell you that much.
Jim Harbaugh probably is the very definition of analog in the best possible way.
100%.
Like, you're going to hook everything up with coax, but somehow or another, you're going to get a 1080, by 720 resolution on that bitch.
Yep.
Somehow or another, it's going to come out crystal clear, even being hooked up with a coax scale.
100%. More voicemails, Jake. 323-902-7586. Let's get to some of these a little more rapid fire here so we can get to all of them because we appreciate everyone calling in. Again, leave voicemail, 30 seconds or less. We'll do our best to get them all in. Here's the next one.
Check it out. I've been a fan since '94, since we went to the Super Bowl with Junior Seau, tight end Alfred Papunu, Stan Humphrey, Natron Means Business, right?
Yes.
Shout out, by the way. Dang, these are names I haven't heard in a minute.
New regime, new coach, new results. We had.
Oh, I got to put that on a shirt. New regime, new coach, new results.
I like it.
To win that way because we had to break the Chargering curse in the Chargering fashion. You feel me? Like, frustrating. I think Josh Taylor is trash. Cam Hart.
Oof, he got burned on that T. Higgins double move, by the way, on that fourth down. And Josh Taylor, I think, is hurt, but still, yeah, that hurt.
Was locking up Jamar Chase 101, 5th round draft pick on Jamar Chase. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's ugly. Some games are ugly. Some wins that the Chiefs get are ugly. They're ugly. You feel me? But the NFL ain't a pretty sport. It's ugly sometimes. And you just got to come away with the win. So, at the end of the day, it's bolt gang or don't bang. And guess what? Who got it better than us? Nobody.
I don't really have anything more to say to that, Dan.
Amen.
I don't.
Put it on a t-shirt. Next one.
Hey guys, Mustafa from Houston. Man, oh man. That game took years off my life.
As did it everybody.
Preach to the choir.
Dislocated my shoulder Saturday, but...
Oh, God, okay. I was, for 2 seconds, I thought to myself, he dislocated his shoulder watching the game until he said, there was a little pause in there that he said, I dislocated my shoulder on Saturday. I was like, but it felt like it took forever for him to say on Saturday.
Between the first voicemail and that one, I was like, okay, we got to figure something out here.
Oh my God. I was legitimately scared. Like, dude, you don't have to have
leave
something
the TV
happen
alone
to you because of the game. But
yeah.
Okay, whatever happened to you on Saturday, I hope you're okay. Yes. I hope the game made it feel a little bit better, but I'm thankful you didn't dislocate your shoulder watching this game.
Or like punching a TV when they tie the game up or something.
This game gave me all the morphine I needed.
There we go.
A couple injuries throughout the game, but
including a dislocated shoulder.
Worked through it, The offense had great first half. Second half, wish it was better, but defense held up in the end, And I think that's what this team is built upon, their defense. J.K. Dobbins, pretty good game. Led McConkey, man. that he is our next Keenan Allen. That's all I got. I'll keep it short. All right. See you guys next week.
Rest up.
Winning is a hell of a drug, isn't it? Winning is a hell of a drug, and it cures a lot of ills outside of just physical pain.
Yep. Chargers Unleashed hotline. Let's keep it rolling, Jake. Next one. I love these, by the way. This is what this show is all about. So shout out to all the fans who called in again. 323-902-7586. And by the way, thank you for bringing the energy this time. I love this. Next one.
Hey guys, I'm a big fan of your show. Quick question or two. I was wondering if you guys think we're gonna roll with Trey Pipkins next year, because I'm a really big fan of him. And last question: do you think Daiyan has he earned that 5th-year option that could be picked up next off season? Thanks. Bye.
This is an interesting question, and a lot of people ask this more specifically about the rotation that was between Trey Pipkins and Jamari Sawyer, because you had Jamari Sawyer in goal line package when J.K. Dobbins scored early on in the game on that 4th down play. And then you go back to the J.K. Dobbins winning run, and Trey Pipkins made a key block on pulling guard in that situation.
Yep.
Greg Roman actually alluded to this to say they have packages where they feel more comfortable. And honestly, I love this. I do, because this is a coach fully understanding not just who their starters are, but who they have in reserve. I don't think that you can even look any further than what they've done with Scott Madlock this season to show the type of versatility that they have. Dan and I were at the practice when at one point in time, it was Jordan McFadden at fullback. It was Jordan McFadden in motion running as tight end. And all of us collectively were like, what the hell is this? It's awesome, because we have never seen anything like that up until that point in time. So having the confidence to rotate between Jamari Sawyer and Trey Pipkins, because you know what one strength may be in that particular type of situation as opposed to another player, that's good coaching, in my opinion. Now, as far as what happens in the offseason this year, I'm not so sure whether we're talking about Trey Pipkins or Daiyan Johnson. I still think that as it relates to this interior of this offensive line, I still think that there is cohesion that is still coming together for them to produce better. And you can add Bradley Bozeman into that conversation as well. Here's what I will say. You will see the Chargers reinforce this offensive line once again, whether it be through free agency or the draft. So whatever happens, it's not going to stop them from prioritizing that position again.
I'll answer it. No, I don't think they bring Trey Pipkins back. And no, I don't think Daiyan Johnson has earned the 5th-year option yet. Getting into specifics, Trey Pipkins, again, this past year, the reason why a lot of people were kind of just resigned to the fact that he was going to stay was because it was a dead cap regardless. He had 11.25, according to Spottrack, million of dead cap this year. So regardless of if he played or not, on this team or not, over 11 million of dead cap. Next year, that changes. $9 million cap hit, but dead cap, if they were to cut him, $2.5 million. So they are in a $9 million better spot now, to where if they did not keep him on the team next year, it's only a $2.5 million cap hit versus almost 12 this year. And Sawyer's look pretty good. He's kind of the man in the wings right now. And look, Daiyan Johnson is an absolute beast in the run game. Needs improvement in the pass game. And so you hope that this offensive line, to your point, gets more cohesion as the time goes on. And the offense certainly seems to look like it has. I mean, how often have we had to talk about this Chargers offensive line just getting thrashed at the end of games? We haven't talked about that in a while. Chargers offensive line has far less penalties than they have at the beginning of the season. Like, you've seen improvements from this offensive line. So it's a good question. But to your point, generally, though, this is a Jim Harbaugh offense. and they will always have big bodies up front because they see it as a weapon, quite literally. Next one, Jake. Let's get another one. We got so many voicemails. I think we're going through these pretty quick, though. 2 more. Here we go. Next, Chargers Unleashed Hotline voicemail.
This is Russell Fernandez. Charger fan says the and Bosa. Yeah.
Pause. Since the what?
I did not blur anything out. There was no expletive. I think it was just the service that he had. Let's listen one more time.
This is Russell Fernandez. Charger fan says the and Bosa. Yeah.
I'm going to assume, because the inflection in his voice and where it sounded, for the fact that he started I'm just going to assume expletive.
Since the Foxtrot was created.
Since expletive, and I'm going to assume 80s, maybe? Who knows? If I'm right or wrong, tell me, correct me. But all I know is there was probably an F-bomb in there somewhere. And I'm all for
Foxtrot. Or Foxtrot. Last one, Jake. Last voicemail. Again, this is incredible. Thank you guys for all of the voicemails you guys left. Again, 303-902-7586. Let's listen to the last voicemail from this Chargers victory over Cincinnati.
This is Diego Arroyo. You guys are the best. Let's finish watching the game. Go, Chargers, go.
Short and sweet.
When you bring Arnold Schwarzenegger's quote back, it's always a feel-good moment.
Mm-hmm.
Go, Chargers, go. You remember what that game was.
Yep. Oh, man.
Yeah. Dan. The vibes just have me ready to now go to Monday Night Harbaugh and talk about the Baltimore Ravens game. This just got me amped up that much more. And I know, as I said, this was going to be a bridge show because Dan and I hadn't gotten a chance to go through these voicemails. We hadn't gotten a chance to do our recap show of this game together. But let's just take 5 minutes to preview the connective tissue that's going into this game, because Jim Harbaugh is asking once again for everybody to come out. And I'm sure that there's going to be even more people that are going to listen this time around.
The bat signal was raised.
When you think of everything that is connected in this game, Dan, outside of just the brothers facing off, outside of the fact that John Harbaugh has gotten the better of Jim Harbaugh the last 2 times that they have gone up against one another, obviously one of them being in the Super Bowl. You have now obviously the connection of Joe Ortiz coming over from the Baltimore Ravens. You have familiar faces in different places. J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards on one side, Kyle Van Noy on the opposite side. As you mentioned, Jesse Minter, once upon a time, coached on the Baltimore Ravens before he went and coached at Michigan.
Hayden Hurst.
Bradley Bozeman, Hayden Hurst. How many Baltimore Ravens are we talking about? Even Tony Jefferson, who still is on the practice squad, has some type of connective tissue in this game right now. There is reason to believe, then, that there could be so much more drama wrapped up into this than the Cincinnati Bengals game, which is hard to believe. And now you're talking about a Baltimore Ravens team that just lost to a division rival in really bad fashion after turning the ball over 3 times, having Mr. Automatic and Justin Tucker miss 2 field goals, them only running Derrick Henry 13 times in that game. I highly doubt that that's going to happen again going into the Chargers game. What did Chris Rim tell us, Dan? The last thing he said when we were asking about the Baltimore Ravens game, figure out a way to stop Derrick Henry and then just pray. This is going to be a much more physical matchup, especially up front, that the Chargers are going to have to deal with. But how are you going to stop this offensive buzzsaw that essentially the Baltimore Ravens have become throughout the course of the season? As I mentioned, they average 30 points a game. Very similar to the Bengals, where only twice did they not score more than 20 points before Sunday. There's going to be so many. They did, but there's going to be a lot of things to watch on this game. I would assume that Daiyan Henley is going to be spying Lamar Jackson like a hawk. not through maybe the duration of this game because you can't afford that, but he would be the ideal person that I would say is going to be the spy. So how's that matchup going to be? We've already seen this Chargers team not be able to fully contain certain mobile quarterbacks. That's something that they need to correct moving forward, and you're going up against one of the best to do it. So Monday Night Harbaugh could not have any more drama attached to it, especially as it relates to now two teams that are vying for playoff seeding at this point in time. So as much desperation as we wanted to give the Bengals coming in, clinging to playoff life, I don't know if the Baltimore Ravens can afford to lose two straight in the AFC.
No. And I mean, I think Denzel Perriman's health is going to be a big, big factor in this, especially with Derrick Henry coming to town. I mean, Denzel Perriman is your heat-seeking missile for that exact moment, to be honest. Cam Hart, another big one. You hope to see him back. We'll see where Dean Leonard is. His practice window's open, so I would think that he's going to be back soon.
Does DJ Chark come back for this game?
The fact that we're week 12 now, and we have seen 0 catches.
I literally just wanted to see what you were going to say because we've been essentially waiting to see DJ Chark for the past 3 weeks, and it hasn't happened. He was a healthy scratch along with Hayden Hurst for the Bengals game. So I don't know. But I'll tell you this. It'd be nice to have him.
This would be a game that I could totally see something sneaky happening for sure. But like, think about the backdrop, and I know we're all talking about it, but Harbaugh v. Harbaugh, all the familiarity of these two coaching staffs and rosters and the similarities of the play style and the mentality, physicality that both teams represent. Then you add in the records and playoff seeding and prime time. You add in the quarterback matchup. You add in kind of the next slate of games for these teams. The Chargers now flex into primetime football in December against the Broncos now, which makes it 5 primetime games for this Chargers team. Sucks for a lot of fans who have that game pegged already. They have to move things around. Hopefully we can all figure it out. Also gives the Chargers team kind of a mini bye, as Eric Smith alluded to on Twitter earlier today, late in the season. And given they had a crazy early bye, it's a big deal. But this Ravens team can be beat. They have been beat by the Chiefs. They have been beat by the Browns. They have been beat by the Raiders. They have been beat by the Steelers. 2 of those losses.
Some of those losses, you could say that the Ravens beat themselves.
Sure. You can say that about any team. So, I mean, it's going to be a premier matchup. This is probably the premier game on the Chargers schedule going into the season, and it seems to not be disappointing right now. And you're starting to see more and more the national pundits start paying attention to this Chargers team and giving them accolades. But you heard Jim Harbaugh say F that, essentially.
Don't do it. They're trying to kick you in the shins and make you soft, which in that circumstance, Dan and I should shut the hell up in giving this team praise because we're feeding that machine ourselves. So I will, you know what, Dan? Let's just go back to where we were a year ago. Let's talk about how much this team sucks and how much they're worthless, and they're never going to amount to anything until they change something because
no weapons. Their offensive line sucks. Their defense is the worst in the league.
Exactly.
They can't return a punt to save their life. Their clock management's terrible. Coaching's despicable. It's much easier to then like, oh, cool, I was wrong. They won.
It's a nice turn of events that have happened. But yeah, maybe to Jim Harbaugh's point, let's pull back on the accolades because no, we're not.
The job ain't finished. This is the thing. The job ain't finished. And we've approached the tough part of the schedule. And they have checked off the first box. They beat a desperate Bengals team. And that deserves praise because that is a hard team to beat when they are backed up against a wall. But now they've got the Ravens, they've got the Bucks, the Falcons, the Chiefs, the Broncos, all jumbled up there.
It's a tough way to close out the season.
We talked about this to Chris Rim. If they could go 500 in this stretch, they already 1-0. They need 2 more wins, and that gets them to 10-5 with good games ahead to close out the season that you'd think would be wins. But again, we'll get to a full preview of this Chargers-Ravens team matchups and all that stuff, predictions, key players, etc. This weekend. But Jake, this is a fun one, and this is probably a more memorable one for me. Chargers fans deserve all of this, and we're just getting started. Jake, anything else before we get out of here?
No, sir. Like I said, this just revved my engine up more to talk about this Baltimore Ravens game. And like Dan alluded to, we're going to do it in live format. Screw it, because we need a live format for this upcoming preview of Monday Night Harbaugh. And we need all you guys to join in and bring your questions and bring the energy as you have previously. We love doing that. So we're looking forward to that this weekend.
Love this. Love the Chargers fans. We are in the prime of exciting times for this Chargers fan base and this Chargers team. We're just getting started. For Jake Hefner, you can find him at Jake T. Hefner, myself at Dan W Sports. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time on the next Chargers Unleashed.